This is the first time standing. I sprained my ankle on Monday, so I'm probably going to run through this a little bit quicker than I would have. But I do want to say before I begin, I have now experienced Korean medicine. And it is incredible. I mean, I hats off to you guys. I mean, it's been an incredible 3 days. So, I'm going to switch gears a little bit from the Volcafe presentation, and I'm going to talk about the very, very small individual farmer. And we're going to talk about the Cup of Excellence, what it is, and how it impacts farmer sustainability. Oh. How does this thing move? This? Oh, there we go. Okay. So there's 4 major impacts on farmer sustainability. And when I talk about farmer sustainability, I mean farmer, individual farmer sustainability. And then ramping that up to the big picture and the ripple effect of what Cup of Excellence has done and will continue to do. So there's 4 main topics that I'm going to talk about: quality discovery, higher prices with transparency, farmer identification and direct trade development, or relationship development, whichever way you want to look at it, and quality infrastructure development. First, I need you to understand, for those of you that don't understand what Cup of Excellence is, I'm going to go through the process of this competition. But think in your mind that it is the Olympics of coffee. Think about the number of athletes that participate in the Olympics. And there's 1 gold medal and 1 winner. These are the gold medal coffees of the coffee industry. But without the Olympics, you wouldn't have the sports teams. And our contention is that if you don't have the top coffees, you're not going to build a sustainable infrastructure all the way down. So I'm going to go through how the competition works. So first, in any country that we're in, all farmers, big, small, anybody is invited to participate. You don't have to be a member of the club. You don't have to be a member of the organization. You don't have to be certified. You don't have to do, you just need to send a sample in to participate. And it's free of charge for your first sample. It's a 3-stage competition. So and we have independent auditors that code and control everything, so it's completely neutral. The samples come in, and there's 1 big cupping for a whole week for all of those samples. Now there could be 200 samples, there could be over 1,000 samples, depending on which country we're in. Once we get through pre-selection, the coffees that have passed that pre-selection stage, the farmers are invited to send the actual lot of coffee into a bonded warehouse. New samples are taken, and then the national jury gets together again and cups 2 more rounds of those coffees. They pass the top 60. Now remember, this is maybe 1,000 samples. They pass the top 60, and then we bring in an international jury. And those international cuppers come in to spend a whole week focusing on the best coffees of that particular country. When that's all done, and we figured out who has won, and I'm not going to go through the whole stage, the jury meets the farmers. So the farmers get a chance to hear what the jury thought about the coffees. Now, they don't know whose coffee they cut because it's all blind. And then there's an award ceremony. And that award ceremony is the celebration in country of coffee and the recognition of the farmers that are now, well, actually rock stars. They then become the ambassadors to the marketplace for that country. Once that's all done, the award ceremony, the hoopla, the screaming and yelling and dancing, and the ambassadors and the presidents and the press and everything, samples are sent globally. to anybody that registers to bid. They give a sample of all the winning coffees. Then they go to auction, and they're sold to the highest bidder in a transparent, beat you up, highest price takes it, internet auction. Then the lots themselves, or before the auction, all the lots are milled to quality standards, specialty quality standards. They're actually vacuum packed to preserve that quality, and then they're shipped. And as per normal, then the payment goes back to the producing countries, and the farmers get the majority of the money. The individual farmer that won the competition gets the majority of the auction proceeds. The organizing committee in country can keep up to 15, 16% of it to help pay for the event over time, but the farmers get it. It's why we're so small, the base is so small. The farmers, we are trying to build a new reward system for top quality. Then the roasters get this coffee, and they get a chance to sell this extraordinary coffee. It's an award-winning coffee, and we have an in-depth farm story. So they get to sell that to the consumer. All right, so how does this work? I mean, what does this mean? So in Burundi, for example, this year, we had 228 entries, which is a relatively small competition. 9,672 cups were analyzed to come up with 17 winners out of 228 entries. That's the intensity that I'm talking about with these kinds of competitions. But in order to do that, we ended up having to have 557 perfect roasts. And you gotta have trained people to have 557 perfect roasts. But over 2,000 liters of hot water, and each cup was weighed and ground and cupped individually. Each top 10 winner was scored 105 times. We know these coffees are good, but no other coffee ever has ever gotten this kind of scrutiny, or probably ever will. And we know that this works because we've been doing it. And what happens then is you start developing the knowledge of what these coffees are and where they're coming from. Before Cup of Excellence, and probably still now, I mean, the vast majority of coffees are blended. Why is that a problem for top quality coffees and farmers? Well, let me give you an analogy. Blending all coffees is like blending all wines out of France and exporting them as French wine. And this is what we have done in the coffee industry for decades. It would mean that you would blend all your kimchi in Korea. There would be no individual regional flavors, no individual differences. It would be a massive pot of kimchi. Now, that wouldn't be good. And this is what we did. So we were completely, and we still are. I mean, I've been in the industry for a long time, and we still don't know a lot about the really unique flavor profiles that are possible in coffee, because we just don't get at it very easily. When you don't blend a coffee, when you separate it out by microclimate, by varietal, by farm, suddenly the sky's the limit on the kind of flavor profiles and the potential that you can taste. And when you do that, and when you know where the coffee's coming from, what farm, what microclimate, what part of a farm even, and you give the farmers back the results of the competition, they then understand the quality of their coffee. And not only do they understand the quality of the coffee, they then try to push for higher quality, and they start doing experimentation, because they know there's a process by which they can get a reward and recognition if in fact that quality comes through. There's been several times where a brand new varietal, an experimental varietal, or a different part of the farm has started coming through, and now we're looking at the development of, let's say, Pacamara out of El Salvador. Pacamaras used to be blended with Bourbons, or they were never separated out for quality. And when we first got into El Salvador, nobody knew what to expect out of a pacamara. It was just these larger beans, and they had kind of a weird flavor. As we started getting higher quality pacamaras, and as we started differentiating these different beans, El Salvador saw their industry just skyrocket, and relationships were developed, and people started experimenting with processing, and the pacamaras became a standard of the specialty industry with much higher prices, not just overall, but to the individual farms and to El Salvador as a whole. And now you see the pacas and the pacamara in Honduras and Guatemala doing very, very well. And you can see the same thing with geisha, although in Panama, they've developed, or they've focused a lot on geisha. So the second thing I want to talk about is prices. Now this is an old slide, but you can, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what Cup of Excellence prices are in comparison to the ICO composite price and even the fair trade price. And one of the important factors of getting high prices is that it suddenly blows open the door and changes what's possible in coffee. Our highest price that we've ever gotten for a coffee was $80 a pound. When that happened, and this is years ago, it was like, oh my gosh, anything's possible. The world is possible. It's not a cents differential. It is $20 differential. It is blowing the doors off of what's possible in the industry. And if you don't do that, you're not going to get to that road of differentiation to where you've got all these different levels of quality. High auction prices are actually, they're good for the farmer, obviously, because they get the money, the winners, but they're also good for the industry. And if you don't make something good for the industry, you're not going to make it good for the farmer. And the reason that it's good for the industry, the financial reward back to the farmers improves sustainability for quality. If there's no hope of payment at the end of hard work, why do hard work? If there's no hope that you might win, or if there's no hope that you're going to be recognized, why do it? You know, you could grow carrots or spices or cacao, but when you have this, you know, the hope that you might win, or the realization that your farm is next to the winner and you might be able to get an additional $2 or $3 a pound, that's really incentive for farmers to start looking at high quality and producing quality. The pricing structure for Cup of Excellence is based just on quality. That's it. It's what's in the cup. There's no like favorite status. There's no, well, I've developed this relationship over the years. It is just really what's in the cup. The auction prices create a lot of media attention. And if they create media attention in the producing countries, they often create media attention in the consuming countries. And it gives the buyers what we call bragging rights, which means that there's a sense of the buyers wanting to constantly own these, which means that these high-priced coffees will continue to be sold. But the biggest thing that I see with higher-priced Cup of Excellence coffees is the impact it has on the consumer. If the consumer starts to recognize that if you want different kinds of coffee, you have to be willing to pay for different kinds of coffees. Once that happens, then you are building the sustainability chain between the consumer willing to pay high prices and support the chain all the way down and the farmer getting them. If you don't get the consumer on board, then the roasters can't push the prices up. I mean, that's just logical. You can't put yourself out of business. In the auction system, we have complete transparency. So that changes the dynamics of what the farmer feels for his pricing. It doesn't stop at the exporter, it doesn't stop at the co-op, it goes directly to the farmer, and that makes a big difference. And transparency is really something that we're very proud of what we've built. We didn't set out to build transparency. In fact, it was one of those pleasant surprises as we were going through this program, what happens when you build transparency into the system. These are a couple of slides of winners. Recognition and transparency are empowering. Think about a farmer that has never been recognized for anything, that may owe half the value of the farm to the bank, that may, never have had the opportunity to be, thrilled or recognized, has worked hard all their life, and all of a sudden, in one split second or one award ceremony, they are recognized and they are the ambassadors of that country. And it's the most incredible moment that I see, the transformation of a group of coffee farmers who are supporting each other, whose neighbor just won, who they won, who the co-op won. I mean, it's so empowering, it's incredible. Now I want to talk a little bit about what this transparency actually means, and I'm going to let you hear the voices of the farmers. So this is Honduras. This is an old map, but you see all the little spots there. And between 2004 and 2010, those were the winning farms. I mean, that's where they were. We've got a new one coming, but they discovered farmers in places they didn't know had quality. This is the discovery mechanism that's really so cool, is that every competition there's a surprise. There's a surprise coffee that we cup, it gets awarded, and we go, wow, we didn't know that little microregion could produce that kind of coffee, so let's go in and see what else they can do. But I want to share with you some of the actual farmer stories, because this is about the individual farmer. So here's the farmer from Santa Barbara, winner in 2008. His coffee sold for $16 a pound. Franklin says, and I'm not going to read it all, I'm just going to summarize. I work all year on the farm. I start picking coffee in February and finish in May. He has a wet mill. He dries his coffee on patios. He constantly trains his workers. He plants trees on the farm. He's environmentally aware. And then he talks about how the coffee crisis affected him, and it reduced his ability to pay for labor, and it reduced his ability to grow coffee. This is what happens when coffee prices go down. Now, what happened after Cup of Excellence? He says, winning Cup of Excellence has helped me become known to the world. I invested the premiums to improve the mill and my quality, and now I'm keeping a direct relationship with a buyer. I believe CoE was the only tool we had to obtain direct buyers. Here's another one, the winner 2011. This is an interesting story because he's an indigenous farmer in a very, very unexplored, kind of diverse ecosystem. And the farmers here are, 90% of them are micro farmers. I mean, they're very, very small. They move their coffee by mule. And yet he was able to put his coffee into the competition. He talks about how he had to leave the farm and go to work in the textile industry. And then when coffee prices started to recover, he bought his father's abandoned farm and he put his coffee in 2009, the first time he put his coffee into the competition. And he lost. He didn't win. And that made him even more determined to produce quality. And then in 2010, he got third place. And he promised himself that he would do a better job. And in 2011, he won. And he was ecstatic. And what did he promised himself that if he won, he would build a church for his community with the auction proceeds. And he did. And he sent his kids. He sent his kids to school. He bought more land. And he talks about how this is a program that allows him to sell to international buyers. He also has a long-term relationship with a buyer that found him through the Cup of Excellence program, a buyer that is willing to pay a lot more. So here's Guatemala, and you can see that the two farms, Las Nubes, I have to just tell you the story real quickly. Las Nubes was in a part of Guatemala that nobody thought could produce quality. And this is right on the border of Honduras. And the very first time we did Cup of Excellence in Guatemala, Las Nubes won. And we literally went out to count trees to make sure that this wasn't coffee from Honduras. because that is the way that Honduras copies in Guatemala. But no, he had this, I mean, out of the middle of nowhere, he put the coffee into the competition and won, but nobody would help him develop a relationship. Nobody would help him sell the coffee as its own coffee. And one of the buyers, an importer in the UK, came in, helped him revamp his farm so that he was a lot more sustainable production-wise, and now he has a long-term relationship with a high-end supermarket chain in London. And this has been going on now for 10 years, and he's expanded his farm, and he's really developed. Now, obviously, the most famous of the Guatemala winners is Alan Herto, and I do believe Arturo is probably here somewhere. He's the most decorated farmer in Cup of Excellence. He's actually had the highest prices. He's won multiple awards. He separates his farm into little micro lots. And now, think about this, just like a wine estate, he is now auctioning his farm. He is now separating out the pieces of the coffee lots on his farm and doing his own auction. And this is so like the wine model, where estates get recognized and they take different areas and they develop the brand and the value of it. But I wanted to just let you hear another farmer in Guatemala, because part of this is very important. Before Cup of Excellence, all the coffee on the farm was sold in bulk to the exporters. Separation by quality or varietal was not rewarded. Micro lots did not exist. Now every micro lot is cupped and by different flavor profiles for different buyers. Cup of Excellence has helped us build relationships with roasters, not only the ones that purchase the coffee at auction, but others that follow the results or receive samples. We have learned about the specialty marketplace and how to have consistent quality for all of our coffees, since we know that they will be purchased. Listen, they know that they will be purchased. Cup of Excellence has let us tell our story, and so important, has encouraged our next generation to continue cultivating quality coffee. We have been losing the young people by the thousands to move to the city to get jobs where they can make a living, and this does not bode well for the coffee industry. Because for years and for decades and for generations, farms were handed down from father to son to father. The kids, they couldn't make a living. So beginning with the coffee crisis, beginning with the prices so low, they had to do something to feed their family. There was no pride in growing coffee anymore. And now with the specialty industry and the third wave and the quality and the relationships, triggered by not just Cup of Excellence, by all kinds of people, Kate and everybody else that believes in the farmers, they're now staying on the farm. And this is going to be one of the major differences between whether we have the quality and the coffee that we need in the future, is what happens to this young generation. So in order to get to those 9,678 cups or whatever we cupped, we have to develop infrastructure in the coffee-producing countries that allows us to build transparency, find quality, and be able to reward it and get it shipped out like it is. So we train national cuppers. Sometimes it takes years for us to develop a country into a Cup of Excellence country. Those trained cuppers stay in that country. We develop quality standards, roasting, cupping preparation. These are all up to international standards, so farmers can then, when they do present their coffees, they are presented in a way that people can cup them. We run into every quality problem imaginable, every one of them. If you ever want to find a quality problem, try to ship out the top coffees or the top anything, and you'll find a problem. So we try to identify quality problems and solve them, and then share what one country has done with another country. The competition process gives farmers, exporters, importers feedback on a lot of different copies. What's going on with defects, because we kick them out, but we know where they're coming from. What's going on with different varietals, like in Colombia, some of the rust-resistant varietals. There's feedback. There's actual cupping feedback on what's going on in that country with the situation at hand. And then this program actually helps develop regional appellations, which increases premiums. So having said all that, I have to tell you who owns it. I would be remiss, because Cup of Excellence is a program that's owned by the Alliance for Coffee Excellence. We're a not-for-profit membership organization. Our main goal is to advance excellence in coffee, but we do most of our work at origin. And we're managed by a 9-member board, and we have head judges all over the world. I wanted to let you know that. So if you wanted to become a member of the Alliance for Coffee Excellence, we'd be welcome to have you. Our members are global. Other than that, I just want to thank you for listening, and